So what do I say? How does this work?
You've done 100 of them.
I know.
This is my first one.
Welcome.
Ready? Hello and welcome to Media Snack Meets. I'm joined by Charles Yardley from Forbes Media. Charles, can I just get you to quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me. I'm Charles Yardley. I represent Forbes Media. I'm responsible for running their business in the international marketplace in Europe, and I'm based in London.
Great. Good. Now, the reason we bumped into each other at an event early in the year, having not seen each other for years and years.
Indeed.
And one of the first things that you shared with me was how you guys were celebrating 100 years of Forbes this year. And as keen viewers will know, we've recently celebrated 100 episodes of Media Snack. So I just thought, what perfect synergy.
Yes.
To us, that was an important milestone, but 100 years of Forbes. Just tell us, what have you been doing this year to celebrate that?
Yeah, well, that's congratulations on this
Thank you very much.
100th show. It's also 100 years is a significant milestone for Forbes as a traditional media business. We were founded in 1917 by BC Forbes and Walter Dray, and in the last 12 months we've been initiating a number of celebrations that highlighted the fact that we reached 100 years, and that varied from things like we had a social impact voice, where we had a number of non-profit organisations and charities, whereby we gave them access to our content management system. We allowed them to publish content on our site, thought leadership content, throughout this year. So that could have been with the likes of someone like UNICEF, which has been fascinating to see their thought leadership content and how it resonated with our audience on our site. We naturally had a big party in New York to celebrate that. And we had a number of the world's great sort of business minds attend that event, and we had a fun music evening with Stevie Wonder. We then took that...
You're just name dropping now.
Yeah, sorry.
I thought we might get into this with Forbes. Okay, go on.
I've got 100 to get to, 100 names to get to. Then we moved that over to Hong Kong. We have a global CEO conference in Hong Kong, and we were able to continue those celebrations in that marketplace. We had a day of impact. Everyone in the company took part in a day of impact. So we had 250 employees participate across 10 different cities in giving back in some shape or form. In London, for example, we worked with Hackney schools around a sports initiation, which was a fun day out. And then lastly, I suppose that the pinnacle is the fact that we had our 100th anniversary of the magazine. And that again profiled 100 greatest living business minds, and I will name drop because they were...
Who was on the cover of that?
The cover of that was Warren Buffett, so Warren Buffett was in there, but it was everyone from Warren Buffett to Mark Zuckerberg to Oprah Winfrey to Donald Trump to Paul McCartney, the who's who of all of the greatest living minds. So those were the key initiations that we took part in, were involved in, to celebrate our 100 years.
Good. Well, I mean, it's a big year, and congratulations. So a lot of celebration there. I thought you might just say we had a party, but you obviously, as a business, it's worthwhile celebrating, because when we talk about media, we're particularly on Media Snack. I mean, we're often talking about Google and Facebook and Amazon and all the kind of what we might call the new media. There aren't many media brands that have kind of stood the test of time in the way that Forbes has. So I mean, I think it's quite good for the industry to celebrate, frankly, not just yourselves. You did. You did a CMO summit in Europe, which we'll come on to talk about in a moment. But one of the components of that was you celebrating enduring brands. And I know there's been, some consideration, I think recently. There's a bit of kind of conversation about how brands, survive over time, and to celebrate those kind of enduring brands. Because again, there aren't that many. Yeah. And there's a lot of new brands. So for the Forbes, which is what I was going to ask you, people might know, as a magazine, celebrating kind of wealth and success, that's something which has gone in and out of fashion, or maybe the perception of what you should celebrate as entrepreneurship or wealth has changed. So how have you been an enduring brand in? Yeah,
I think what's Forbes now is in many ways is a technology business, or it's a digital media business that's fueled by technology and powered by technology, and that may well be different to some people's sort of perceptions of who we are. digital is at the forefront of our makeup of what we do. But I think over time, and we can speak about enduring brands and those panels that we had at our CMO summit, but I think we have had to adapt and innovate and pivot very quickly to adapt to the, I suppose in many ways, the media consumption patterns of the audience that we speak to.
Yep.
But also at the same time, throughout that whole 100-year period, it's maintaining what we stand for, which is championing free markets, enterprise and capitalism, and that remains unwavered. That mission of what we stand for hasn't changed in any shape or form, but how we deliver it and how we put that content out now is in many different formats.
Yeah, and we were talking about this before. It's like one of the challenges, I think, for people that are not super familiar with Forbes, but they'll know it by reputation, is that perhaps in the past it's celebrated that the kind of the American white middle class or middle-aged kind of billionaire.
Yeah, I think.
But now it's a very different.
Yeah, if you went back over the years and you looked at the covers and what we wrote about, they were invariably linked to industrial leaders of whether or not it was the tobacco industry or the oil industry or the transport industry or banking or energy. Yeah. Now, if you look at the covers and the stories and what Forbes write about, whilst we don't steer away from that, a large part of what we write about is people behind the technology companies. So it could be, the faces or the success stories behind the likes of companies like Amazon or Facebook or LinkedIn, those type of businesses. And again, that content appeals to a different type of audience. So I think what's also transcended is the fact that the makeup of our audience now, online for example, 40% of our audience will be millennials under the age of 30, which is, again, in some people's perception, might not be who we reach in some ways.
And it's mostly a digital business now.
From a revenue makeup, 80% of our revenues, probably a little bit more than 80%, will come from digital.
Yeah. Okay. And so tell me about this. It's another thing we were talking about before, which is this contributor model, which I think is quite unique. So you have you allow kind of like non-staff writers, right, to contribute content.
Yes. So I mean, to give you a bit of context to that. Forbes.com, when it launched, the site first launched in about 96, 97 as a standalone digital business. And it was very much standalone. It was separate CEO, separate P&L, separate office. We were down the road from the
just
magazine
in case
people.
It didn't work out.
But we all got on eventually. And forward wind, it becoming a successful standalone business, a profitable business. It went through a period of time where it integrated with the magazine, and then it got to a point where the next significant milestone would have been in 2010. That was when we bought a company called True Slant, and True Slant is what kick-started the contributor model that you referenced, and that allowed us to build huge scale and huge expertise amongst thought leaders and opinion leaders across a number of different channels and sections relative to the website makeup, the taxonomy of the website. And today we have over 2,000 contributors. And to your point, you're right, we don't have a newsroom of 2,000 people, of staffers. These contributors are paid or incentivized in different ways, whether it be by followers or the size of the audience they attract, for example.
Yeah. So I read on Wikipedia, so you correct me whether this is correct or not, that some contributors can bank six-figure salaries from writing for Forbes. Is that true?
I mean, I'm not going to give out any financial details, but there are certainly...
You can make a living.
Yeah, you can certainly, without doubt. There's some extraordinarily successful contribitors who have been able to not just supplement their income, but perhaps Forbes has become a mainstay of their income makeup. There are, and actually I know in London there are a couple of individuals one whose expertise is about writing on Samsung and Apple, for example, and this gentleman, Gordon Kelly, he's a contributor, he regularly attracts 1 million plus views on every story that he publishes. So much so that those brands will, I suppose in some ways, it could sort of see him almost like a PR vehicle for themselves, because he has so many followers that when you launch
He's a
new iteration of a device, then you make sure you keep him in the loop, because he's got so many people following what he writes about.
Excellent. So let's talk then about, let's move on to kind of the marketing side. So Forbes have championed marketers for a long time. So you've run CMO kind of networking and events.
Yeah.
You did. So why is that? So why, first off, I suppose, why CMOs? Why do you celebrate CMOs?
Well,
because they're not necessarily the business owners, right? Or the billionaires or the entrepreneurs that you're associated with.
But for our business, the CMOs play a vital role in deciphering where advertising monies or marketing monies are spent. So there's that element of it. So naturally, and I think if you look at the makeup,
they're your clients.
They're our clients. So if you look at the makeup of our accounts, the top 20, 25 accounts around the world, you can bet your bottom dollar that every single one of those top accounts is probably driven out of the fact that we have a very good relationship with the CMO. The minute you lose that, the minute actually probably the deal value shrinks. But probably more importantly, we recognise that CMOs are playing more and more of an integral role in the C-suite makeup, and that they're more and more involved with the CIO or the CTO, or they're linked to revenue, so marketing and sales, or they could even be linked to HR, technology, IT. Yeah. So we feel that we want to celebrate that, and of course we also write about CEOs and CIOs, and the C-suite is a big part of our makeup of who we write about. Yeah. So we think it's particularly important. So in the States, we've been running a CMO summit and a CMO network for some 13 years. It's actually the second longest running event that Forbes has. Right. And so it seemed only natural that we should replicate that success in Europe, which is why in about a month or so ago we had our inaugural CMO summit. We did a half-day event. We had about 87 people in the room, CMOs in the room.
Was that?
Yeah, it was. And
it was. I think the only non-CMOs.
You're very privileged.
Yeah, thank you.
and it was a sort of stellar lineup of CMOs, from Adobe to Microsoft, from IBM, Berry Brothers, and we heard from a number of CMOs, a number of different verticals about their challenges and how they're rising to the marketing challenges that sort of face them on a day-to-day basis.
And then Keith Weed did a kind of like end of summit like keynote, or he did a fireside chat, didn't he? But to kind of wrap it all up.
Yeah, Keith is. I mean, that was fascinating to hear from him. I've heard from him a number of times, but he actually is on the Forbes CMO. We do a CMO list every year, and he is the #1 most influential CMO in the world. So again, that was a real privilege for him to come in and talk to us, with his perspective and his outlook. And that followed on actually from conversations that we had at our CMO event in Cannes.
Yeah, it was good. And we talked about at the beginning, the enduring brands thing. I mean, that was there was a panel dedicated to that. And just remind me, so we had on that panel Berry Brothers, which is the wine merchant and retailer, which is about 400 years old, still in family ownership, or majority family ownership, and that was fascinating. And when you think about an enduring business. Yeah. Then we had the Royal Opera House, which I'm going to test you now. How many years was that?
237.
I think they did a bit of a quiz, didn't they? Yeah, did a bit of a quiz. And that was the second oldest. And then the third was IBM, which is a relatively kind of
126 years
young business in comparison. And all of them talking about different kind of challenges of maintaining visibility in the brand over
it was interesting listening to how they started out and what they started out doing and what they are today, and I suspect many people didn't know how Berry Brothers started out, or I saw he referenced something like, I think the biggest trick they missed was tea.
Or coffee.
Or coffee. They
started as a coffee business.
That was it, They thought that was no good. It'll never fly.
Yeah.
And then they morphed into wine, and of course there's they do lots more than just wine. Yeah. And again, and then the Royal Opera House, I suppose the challenge for them it was how do they keep audiences engaged? How do they attract a younger audience, for example? Opera might not be that
but then they've gone digital. It's similar, right? There's digital transformation. Now they're beaming.
Well, that's at the heart of all of their change, isn't it? Of all those CMOs, they would all reference digital transformation as such a key, crucial part of their roles.
Yeah. And I think that was an underlying theme through the summit, and I guess that's big underlying theme that we talk about quite a lot. Just finally, so one of the things that I've observed on Forbes is that brands are investing in content in a slightly different way that they might be thinking about in traditional kind of advertising ways. So instead of like making ads and sticking them on your site to reach your audiences,
yes,
you guys are very challenging to marketers to create relevant content for your site, so which people might regard as native advertising or something. But
yeah, that's exactly.
But you set quite high standards. I think that's my point. You know,
Yes.
and I hope you're challenging marketers to make better quality kind of advertising experiences because of that. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter who I go and see. The marketers that we go and see, they all the bulk of them and the type of marketers that Forbes is dealing with have an inordinate amount of content. They have they produce a lot of content, and I think the challenge remains is how do they distribute that content.
Yeah.
And part of the changes that we've made in the last few years is almost turning that advertising model upside down on its head.
Yeah.
By allowing advertisers, by allowing marketers access to the same content management system that all of our journalists and all of our contributors use on a day-to-day basis. So it means that the brand's content flows through the site in just the same organic way that a journalist piece of content would. Therefore it's searchable and it's discoverable. It's on an equal level playing field alongside all of the journalists. And this is ultimately what marketers want. Marketers want the ability to connect directly with our audience, and this allows them to do that and to have a direct conversation with our audience.
And they can control it a bit better.
And they can control it. They edit the content. We don't vet their content.
They do.
They edit the content and they hit the button to publish.
Excellent.
I mean, there's different ways and different points of buying in, but at that elite level, and at the elite level you've got clients like SAP or Oracle, for example. This is central to their social media and sort of media distribution strategy.
Good. Well, congratulations on 100 years.
Thank you very much.
It sounds like a sophisticated modern business and very different maybe from the Forbes magazine days.
Yes, it's changed.
I'm sure that's been a challenge. I look forward to appearing on front cover at some point in my successful entrepreneurial future.
Yeah.
But Charles, thank you very much
Yeah,
for joining.
cheers, Tom. Thank you.
Thanks.